Have you ever been alone late at night and let out a laugh, only to feel a sudden, ice-cold chill, as if someone, or something, you couldn't see was laughing along with you? If you have, you should pray it was just your imagination. Because if it wasn't, you may have just invited in a curse. A curse that's been passed down in whispers on the internet and in the darkest corners of modern folklore. They call it the Curse of Mr. Giggles. The story people tell today is a gruesome piece of American urban legend. It speaks of a ghostly clown who hunts in the dead of night, drawn to the sound of solitary joy. Now, let's be clear, this isn't the kind of story you'll find in any history book. The whole tale of Mr. Giggles as we know it is a work of fiction, a modern myth born from internet forums and late-night scary story sessions. There's no verifiable evidence of a ghostly clown named Jack Mr. Giggles Harper dying in a circus fire in 1939. But still, the legend persists. The tale goes that Jack Harper was a carnival clown who, in a fit of madness, perished in a great circus fire, his own laughter being the last thing anyone heard before the big top collapsed. Now they say his spirit wanders, hungry. But he doesn't want your fear, not at first. He wants your happiness. He's drawn to the pure, unguarded sound of a laugh in a quiet house after midnight. And when he finds it, he appears in your reflection, a silent spectator to your joy. But he doesn't stay silent for long. He echoes your laughter, twisting it, making it his own. And once you hear him laugh back, it's already too late. Your joy becomes his feast. My name is Leo, and for the last 6 years I've lived alone. It isn't as lonely as it sounds. I'm a graphic designer who works from home. I've got my routines, and I'm comfortable in my own space. My apartment is my sanctuary, at least it used to be. My story, the one I feel like I have to tell, began 3 months ago on a Tuesday. It was almost 2 a.m. I was burning the midnight oil on a project. My eyes were shot, and I decided to take a break. I ended up falling down a rabbit hole of old comedy clips online. I clicked on one from a comedian I loved as a kid, and the punchline, even after all these years, was just perfect. I let out this huge, uninhibited laugh. It filled the dead silence of my apartment, bouncing off the walls. It was a good, deep, genuine laugh. The kind you just can't fake. As the sound died down, and I wiped a tear from my eye, I heard it. It was faint, almost imperceptible. An echo. But it wasn't a natural echo. My apartment isn't that big. This sounded different, distorted. Like my own laugh was being played back to me through a tin can, from far, far away. I froze, my smile just gone. I strained my ears listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the distant rumble of a truck on the highway. Nothing. Hello? I called out, my voice sounding way too loud. Silence. I shook my head, a nervous little chuckle escaping my lips. I'm just tired. My brain is playing tricks on me. That's what I told myself. It's what you would tell yourself too, right? I shut down my computer and went to bed, writing off the strange echo as a phantom of an overworked mind. But as I lay there in the dark, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. A week went by. I'd pretty much forgotten about the whole thing. Then, on Friday night, I was on a video call with my sister. She told me some ridiculous story about her toddler, and I laughed again. That same, full-bellied laugh. The call ended a few minutes later, and I was left staring at my own face on the darkened monitor. That's when I saw it. For just a split second, in the reflection on the black screen, there was something behind me. Over my shoulder. It wasn't a person. It was just a shape. A flash of white and a curve of red. A painted smile. I whipped my head around so fast my neck cracked. Nothing. Just my empty living room, bathed in the pale glow of the streetlights. My heart was a drum against my ribs. I turned back to the monitor, my own wide, terrified eyes staring back at me. The reflection was normal again. Just me, alone in my room. But I knew what I'd seen. The next few weeks were a slow descent into paranoia. I stopped watching comedies. I muted funny videos. I found myself physically stifling any chuckle that threatened to bubble up. The joy in my life started to feel like a liability. The silence of my apartment, once my comfort, was now just tense. One night, unable to sleep, I typed, "Laughter Echo Clown Reflection" into a search bar. I really didn't expect to find anything. But I did. I found a rabbit hole of forum posts on a subreddit for obscure urban legends. People were telling my story with little variations. They called him Mr. Giggles. The posts laid out the legend of Jack Harper and the 1939 Carnival fire. They talked about him appearing in reflections, mirrors, windows, phone screens, drawn by laughter after midnight. They said with each laugh, he gets closer. His reflection becomes clearer, more solid. He feeds on the joy, leaving his victims hollowed out, their faces sometimes frozen in a silent, permanent grin. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. An old digitized newspaper article on some small-town blog. The post mentioned that while the 1939 fire was the popular origin, some older tales suggested the entity was far more ancient. It referenced a supposed incident in 1908 in a town called Willow Creek. A silent clown, known only as Giggles, performed at a local circus. After his final performance, every single child in the audience vanished without a trace. Of course, there was no historical record of this event, just local ghost stories. They said for decades after, you could hear faint carnival music near the old fairgrounds and find scorched handprints behind a burned-down barn. The legend of Mr. Giggles wasn't just a story about a ghost. It was a century-old curse. The 1939 fire wasn't the beginning. It was just another chapter. I looked at my own reflection in the dark screen of my laptop. Was this Jack Harper? Or was it something much, much older? That night, I tried to laugh. A forced, nervous sound. I stared into the bathroom mirror, waiting. And there he was. No longer a blur. For a full 3 seconds, I saw him standing behind me. A tall, lanky figure in a filthy, singed clown costume. His face was a mask of cracked white paint. His smile a grotesque slash of blood red. His eyes were just black pits, and from them I could feel an ancient, gnawing hunger. He wasn't just in my reflection. He was looking at me from it. I started avoiding being alone. I worked from coffee shops, stayed late at friends' houses. Anything to avoid the solitude of my own home after midnight. Laughter, something that used to bring me happiness, was now a trigger for pure, primal terror. In a moment, I'm going to tell you what happened on the last night. The story of Mr. Giggles, as we've discussed, is a fictional urban legend. But stories like this tap into a very real, shared fear. If you find these strange, dark, and mysterious stories as compelling as I do, and you haven't already, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel. It lets me know you want more explorations into the shadows. It was a storm that did it. A violent, totally unexpected thunderstorm that knocked out the power grid for 3 city blocks. One minute, I was safe in the artificial light of my apartment. The next, I was plunged into absolute darkness, and a silence so thick it was suffocating. My phone was nearly dead. I was trapped. I sat on my sofa, knees pulled to my chest for what felt like hours. I tried to control my breathing, to stay calm, to not let a single stray thought trigger an emotion. But in the darkness, memories have a way of creeping up on you. A memory of my father, who passed away years ago, telling me a silly joke when I was a kid. A joke so simple, so pure, that even now, sitting in the dark, terrified for my life, a small, sad chuckle escaped my lips. It wasn't a laugh of joy. It was a laugh of grief, of nostalgia, of loss. But he didn't care. I froze. The sound hung in the air. I didn't dare move. Slowly, I lifted my head and looked at the large window in my living room. With the power out, it was no longer transparent. It was a perfect black mirror, reflecting the faint emergency lights from the street below. And me. He was there. He wasn't standing behind me this time. He was pressed right up against the glass on the other side of my reflection. His face was inches from my own, separated only by that thin pane. The painted smile was cracked and peeling, stretched into an impossible grin. His eyes weren't pits anymore. They were swirling voids of pure nothingness. I could almost see the fire that claimed him dancing in their depths. I wanted to scream, but my throat was welded shut. I was paralyzed. I watched, horrified, as he raised a hand, still clad in a scorched white glove. He pressed it against the window, but his hand didn't stop. The glass rippled like black water, and his long skeletal fingers began to push through. They were coming out of my reflection. The air grew impossibly cold. I felt a pressure in my chest, a pulling sensation. It wasn't physical. It was something deeper. He was reaching into me, into my soul, and I could feel him latching onto that tiny, fragile spark of warmth from the memory of my father. I felt him begin to feast, the joy, the love, the nostalgia. It was all being siphoned away, drained from me like a battery. And in its place, he left only cold, echoing terror. My own sad chuckle came back to me, but now it was in his voice. A high, tinny, triumphant giggle that filled my head until I thought my skull would split. The last thing I saw was his reflection, my reflection, as its mouth opened in a silent, joyless scream, my own face beginning to freeze into that permanent, hollow grin. A week later, the building manager entered Leo's apartment for a welfare check. According to the legend's narrative, police reports noted the apartment was pristine, with no signs of a struggle. The only thing out of place was Leo's phone, lying on the living room floor, its screen cracked. The final item in the call log was an audio recording, dated the night of the power outage. For the first 3 hours, the recording is almost totally silent. Then, there's the sound of a single, soft chuckle. This is followed by a chorus of faint, distorted giggles that grow in volume and intensity for 3 minutes, before the recording just cuts out. The fictional police found no explanation for the sounds and no trace of Leo. Of course, these details, the reports, the audio evidence, don't actually exist. They are part of the story built around the legend. The story of Mr. Giggles is a modern urban myth, a piece of digital folklore that plays on our most basic fears: clowns, darkness, and the terrifying idea that our own happiness could attract something malevolent. There is no record of a 1908 Willow Creek incident, nor a 1939 circus fire that matches the legend. It's a story, a campfire tale for the digital age. But it does leave you with a lingering, unsettling question. The next time you find yourself alone, in the dead of night, and a genuine laugh escapes your lips, listen. Listen closely for the echo. Because his legend may be fiction, but the fear of what lurks in the dark is very, very real. And your joy might just be the feast he's been waiting for. Have you ever heard a strange sound or seen something unsettling in a reflection when you were alone at night? Share your own story in the comments below. I try to read as many as I can. And if you want to explore more of the world's most unsettling legends, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss what's coming next.